يا سيد أنا رجعت على لبنان، أتمنى أنك ترجع كمان على لبنان.
قرار صادر من مجلس الجامعة تسمية حزب الله الإرهابي.
Good afternoon, you're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Telecommunications Minister Boutros Hadab vows the government will track any perpetrators involved in the illegal internet file. Prime Minister Tamam Salam holds a meeting to tackle the matter. Saudi King Salman wraps up a landmark 5-day visit to Egypt marked by lavish praise and multi-billion-dollar investment deals. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry calls for renewed efforts to end nuclear threats as G7 ministers make an emotional visit to the Hiroshima Memorial. Telecommunications Minister Boutros Hadab says the government will track the perpetrators involved in the illegal internet file. Prime Minister Tamam Salam has held a security meeting at the Grand Sarai to tackle the matter along with Defense Minister Samir Muqbil, Hadab himself, Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnou, General Prosecutor Judge Samir Hamoud, amongst other officials. Addressing reporters after the meeting, Hadab said the talks were positive and investigations into the matter were ongoing. He vowed the case will be taken seriously and those responsible will be held accountable. 4 people have so far been arrested and a 5th suspect is still on the loose. 2 airport employees detained last week over suspicion of terror links are expected to be released after investigations concluded that allegations against them were false. A security source said judiciary investigations showed the case was empty and paperwork is being filed to have the suspects released. Transportation Minister Ghazi Zaiter had initially brushed off claims that security at Beirut's airport had been compromised by the discovery of the suspects. Lebanese officials have called for a unified broadcasting network in the country to protect local channels following the recent decisions by regional satellite providers to drop Al-Manar television over apparent political disputes. Head of Parliament's Telecommunications and Media Committee, MP Hassan Fadlallah, spoke during a joint press conference along with Information Minister Ramzi Jrej at Parliament after holding a meeting to discuss Egyptian Nilesat's decision last week to stop carrying Hezbollah Ran al-Manar to its subscribers for provoking sectarian strife. A Beirut judge has adjourned the questioning of officials from the waste contractor for Greater Beirut who are accused of squandering public money and neglecting their duties. First investigative judge Ghassan Aouidad set April 25 as the date to continue the questioning of officials from Suklin and its sister company Sukomi. Activists from the We Want Accountability group simultaneously rallied outside Beirut's Justice Palace, demanding that the state's financial prosecution look further into the case and investigate all contracts with Suklin. UN peace envoy to Syria Staffan de Mistura says an upcoming round of negotiations in Geneva aimed at ending the country's 5-year war will be crucially important. After meeting with Foreign Minister Walid al-Ma'alem in Damascus, de Mistura said the talks will focus on the political transition, on governance and constitutional principles. Scheduled to resume on April 13th, the Geneva talks are aimed at ending the conflict. However, the fate of President Bashar al-Assad is a major sticking point. While the opposition insists Assad can play no role in a future transitional government, the regime says voters should decide his fate. Ma'alem reportedly confirmed the government delegation was ready for the next round of peace talks. The UN says it parachuted food supplies to thousands of people besieged by ISIS militants in the Syrian city of Deir ez-Zor in a bid to ease more than 2 years of blockades and shortages. In fact, the World Food Programme says many in the eastern city have been reduced to eating grass and wild vegetation. The delivery of 26 pallets loaded with 20 tons of food came as one opposition official warned that a cessation of hostilities in Syria's civil war was on the verge of collapse. International efforts to get in more aid also took a hit when Syria's government rejected UN requests last week to deliver aid to several towns besieged by its forces. And coming up next, we'll show you the new teaser trailer for the highly anticipated Harry Potter spin-off movie, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Saudi King Salman has wrapped up a landmark 5-day visit to Egypt, marked by lavish praise and multi-billion-dollar investment deals. The monarch's visit comes as Riyadh aims to keep Cairo on its side as it remains engaged in several conflicts in the Middle East. The visit also highlights Saudi Arabia's firm support for Egypt's fight against ISIS, which has spearheaded a brutal insurgency in the Sinai Peninsula since the ouster of Islamist President Mohammed Morsi. Egypt also agreed to demarcate its maritime borders with Saudi Arabia by officially placing 2 islands in the Straits of Tiran in Saudi territory. 4 suicide bombers have carried out explosions in a village in Russia's Stavropol region. Police say 3 of the suicide bombers were killed by the blasts. 1 was shot and killed, but no one else was hurt. Russia's state news agency says the incident has all characteristics of a terrorist attack, although the attackers have not yet been identified. Moving on to Japan, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has called for renewed efforts to end nuclear threats as he became the first U.S. Secretary of State to pay respects at Hiroshima's memorial to victims of the 1945 U.S. nuclear attack. Kerry described the museum as a gut-wrenching reminder of the need to work for a world free of nuclear weapons. After the tour by Kerry and his fellow G7 foreign ministers, the group issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to building a world without nuclear arms, but said the push had been made more complex by North Korea's repeated provocations and by worsening security in Syria and Ukraine.
We came here and drew from the experience of touring in this museum how critical it is that we all apply the lessons of the past to the future and the present. Going through this museum was a reminder of the depth of obligation that every single one of us in public life carries. In fact, every person in position of responsibility carries to work for peace, to continue the efforts that President Obama and other leaders came.
We have to cut this short now as we go live to Ankara, where the Saudi king is received by President Erdogan.
الآن مشاهدينا الكرام سيتوجه خادم الحرم.
Welcome back. Even as scores of U.S. abortion clinics shut down, the number of doctors trained to provide the procedure has surged, but only in some parts of the country. 2 little-known training programs say they have expanded rapidly in recent years, fueled by robust private funding and strong demand. Mana Rabia reports.
Across the U.S., scores of abortion clinics are shutting their doors. That's because states are enacting laws making it harder to get an abortion. imposing waiting periods, mandating counseling, or holding abortion clinics to standards meant for surgical centers. All this as fewer medical institutions provide young doctors with abortion training. And yet, the number of doctors trained to provide the procedure is surging. Two little-known training programs are largely responsible. Between them, they're training more than 1,000 doctors and medical students each year in reproductive services, from contraception to all kinds of abortion.
We're seeing that as more state restrictions are in place and as more hospitals merge with Catholic institutions, the available training for abortion services is becoming less and less.
Among the new abortion providers benefiting from the increased training is Dr. Jennifer Conti. She teaches reproductive care at Stanford University in Northern California and feels an obligation to be vocal about abortion.
It's a trade-off. You either choose to move to one of these places where, it's difficult to access abortions and be an abortion provider, and then you don't put yourself out there in the media because of concerns of safety, or you're in a place where it's a little safer and you do put yourself out there because you're acting on the behalf of everyone.
The problem is, most of the new providers end up working near where they trained, and not in the many southern and midwestern states that have the most restrictive abortion laws. Like Texas, which passed a law that's now being challenged at the U.S. Supreme Court, as it gets ready to hear its first abortion case in nearly a decade.
A new teaser trailer for the highly anticipated Harry Potter spin-off movie called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them has been released. The film takes audiences to New York in the 1920s, where magizoologist Newt Scamander, played by Oscar winner Eddie Redmayne, stops in the U.S. city following his travels to find and document magical creatures. The film opens in cinemas worldwide in November.
You're an interesting man, Mr. Scamander. Just like your suitcase, I think there's much more to you than meets the eye. Kicked out of Hogwarts for endangering human life with a beast. Yet one of your teachers argued strongly against your expulsion. I wonder, what makes Albus Dumbledore so fond of you, Mr. Scamander?
First trip to America?
Yes.
Must get that fixed.
Anything edible in there?
No.
Any livestock?
No.
Welcome to New York.
No human could do what this thing is capable of.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. Telecom's Minister Boutros Ghali vows the government will track any perpetrators involved in the illegal internet file. Prime Minister Tamam Islam holds a meeting to tackle the matter. Saudi King Salman wraps up a landmark 5-day visit to Egypt marked by lavish praise and multi-billion-dollar investment deals. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry calls for renewed efforts to end nuclear threats as G7 ministers make an emotional visit to the Hiroshima Memorial. Those are your headlines for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for watching.
سيد أنا رجعت على لبنان، أتمنى أنك ترجع كمان على لبنان.
قرار صادر من مجلس الجامعة تسمية حزب الله الإرهابي.